Good morning. This is Chris from Artistic Artifacts. As everybody probably knows who watches, is Judy's in Italy. I believe she's probably flying home tomorrow, and we'll be back next week, but in the shop. But today we're going to talk about the new Stripology Quickies book and some of the new kits we have. Just a couple of really quick announcements. There's a few seats left for Seth's lecture on the Friday the 27th in the evening, and a couple places left for his fabricology class on Saturday. We also have Kathy and Alan Anderson coming. That's on the workshop, but it's some precision quilting. They've got some what they call cuties. It's a different way of cutting fabric and some fun patterns. So they're coming for a weekend event. We'll have our Creative Quest in October, and we also have Finnabar coming the last weekend of October. All of those workshops and updates and news and whatever are on the website and in the newsletter. So I'll let you follow those. This week, I think we had the Tim Holtz Elements bundles up, but we also had new quilt kits up in the new Stripology Quickies book. You know, I'm a big fan of the Stripology Rulers and her books. I really like how she writes the patterns. I like the pieces. So I thought I'd give you a little bit preview of that book. I'll go to a couple others. I'll show you some quilts and the kits. And then I also have some ideas because my head never stops is, oh, we could use this fabric for this project or whatever else. So actually, we got a call from Seth Apter yesterday. This is actually using his line of fabric, Live Out Loud. He'll be here. He wanted us to hold a copy of the book for him because he was pretty excited to see his quilt in the book. There are 17 projects in the book. And there's, some of Gundrun's basics. As always, they've got QR codes to take you to videos to tell you how to use the rulers, how to best use them, some of the products. The piece that I liked on this is these aren't all quickie in the terms of, well, you're going to finish these in a couple hours, but they are quick to cut and basic quilts. And what she has done is she started out with some really basics for beginners, and then add some steps of learning different pieces. Of course, I picked the holly, which was one of the most challenging, but I also picked Winnie. And then we have Kobe. So this is actually our Kobe sample. Martha made this one. And she used some Frida Hola fabric. So we have that in a kit, but you can see it's straight cuts. It's really fun fabric with, if you're a Frida or a Day of the Dead, it's got some really fun fabrics in it. Some logos. I mean, it's just bright and cheerful. And this one, and a little bit different from some of the other Stripology books, is all of them they're designed for either half yards or fat quarters. Most of the other books are using 10-inch squares, 5-inch squares, strips. So this one actually will tell you can use 5 half yards. This is a lap size, and the kit has 9 half yards of fabric in it. But you could use 18 fat quarters if you want to make it even scrappier. The other nice thing that I liked about this book is, as in many of her books, she gives you other ideas on how to use it, what it looks like with other fabrics. So this is the Dina. I've seen this in a number as the fabric reps come in and they show us different fabric designers and suggested products. I've seen this one. This is actually with Anna Marie Horner. I actually think it would look really nice with a K-fat bundle. So what I looked for when I was looking was a bundle that had 10 fabrics, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This is 85 and Fabulous half-yard bundle of contrast. So I could do that, and for these nice stripes, why not use a stripe? So that's kind of how I'm looking at it is, oh, I've got a bundle. Is there a half-yard bundle? Is there something I can make with it? Again, some more ideas. This is the Mia, and a lot of you have probably made the little Mia, so this is just a larger size using 8.5-inch squares rather than the 5-inch squares that the little Mia is, which is a table runner size. Fun Halloween one. This is another one I think is going to, I mean, talk about super easy. This definitely has the one check for beginners, is you're actually using large strips. It calls for 10 half yards, or, and I'm thinking, and this isn't all of 10, but I'm just thinking, wouldn't that be a fun quilt with some of our new jewels and some Australians, and just pull those colors out of the Australians? I mean, to me, that would sing.
That's the same color scheme as my panel quilt bundle I have to make.
Oh yeah, from what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, probably.
But look how, that's just fun. I mean, I can't take it home. I have other projects I have to do. So then this one is actually fun. She's designed this one to where the fabric requirements makes 2 quilts. Which is actually really fun. So you actually you're using the scraps from cutting this one to make this one. And all of her books, she gives you different layouts for different sizes, very clear instructions on how to cut, where to put your rulers. And she also gives instructions on if you're using the Stripology ruler versus, or if you don't have the Stripology, you can use the regular rulers. The quilt behind me, oh, actually, here's the one with the Sess fabric. So this uses 5. If you're making his bundles, his fat quarter bundles have 15 fabrics in them. So you could get, you could make a twin size, or you could just use 5 of the fat quarters, or buy the half-yard bundles and use some of them and then piece your back, or have some to make pillowcases or whatever else. So the quilt that I made, the back one is the Winnie, and that's this one. And for this one, I chose some Billy Rue fabric, which are all of these. And then this is a little ebb and flow. So it's 2 different designers. I have no problem mixing them, but it was fun to use. So this one I think is, I mean, it's a great fabric. And when you start cutting it up, that's how you get your different color stripes. So it adds even a little bit more dimension. This one too, this mosaic is pretty. This one I chose one of our wide backs. It's one of our geometric wide backs, and I just thought it was perfect. It pulled in the purples and the blues. And of course, Andy quilted it for us on the long arm.
We have got some later joiners. Would you mind sharing the title of the book again?
Sure. The book is, this is the brand new book for GE Designs. It's called Stripology Quickies. And it's designed for half yards and fat quarters. In which I said, most of our other books are made with either 10-inch squares or 5-inch squares. So if you're using a fat quarter or a half of like if you're using half a yard to make 10-inch squares, you can get 4 10-inch squares out of a half yard, but you still have 8 inch left of fabric. To me, that's no problem. Then 8 inches, that makes I just use that for making a rice bag because that's what it calls for, is width of 8 inches. But if you're looking for, these are designed for half yards. Any other questions?
A lot of good mornings to you, though.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. It's a beautiful morning here. Absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, we've been blessed with gorgeous weather, but on the downside, we're entering into a drought because we haven't had rain. But again, this is the Winnie quilt kit, and this one is a pre-order. We had to order some more of the palette background fabric, but that is on the website for pre-order. So you're going to ask, what's so special about the Stripology Ruler? There's a lot special about it. But this is the ruler itself. This is the XL. It comes in several different sizes. I have this, and I use it a lot in my studio. And then the other one I have, this was the first one I got. And once I advanced and graduated to the XL, I believe Judy inherited the square. But it's the same principle. The fact with this one is it's 20 inches long and this one's 12 inches long. So if you're cutting strips, you just get more bang for your buck on the XL. But a lot of it depends on how much cutting space you have in your studio. This one works with maneuvering. This is the size of the pad I have in my studio, so it works with some maneuvering. I'm usually moving fabric aside from another project. There's also the quarters mini, and this one is actually nice. This one is actually my version of it, but this one actually has 1/4 inch markings on it. The other ones have 1/2 inch marking. These are really nice if you're using the mini patterns, table runner patterns, or smaller squares. It's really nice for that. And then the squared mini is the same thing, but doesn't have as many slits in it. But when I talk about slits, what it is when you look at your markings, your rotary cutter goes right into those markings. So here's some leftover fabric from the other project. I think I'm going to make a rice bag out of this. So I'm layering 2 fat quarters. You're going to be looking at this upside down because I can't cut upside down. But what I do when I go to cut is I put my edge of my fabrics a little bit past, so maybe like 1/4 inch past the 0 to the left. And then I want 8 inches because that's how much I need for a rice bag. So first I trim, but I'm just going right in that slit and it's trimming it off. And I've marked it with one of the ruler stickers, which you can take off and use as she talks about where you cut for the next thing. And then I'm going to make an 8 inch cut right here. And what that has done is it's given me a very even cut. I've cut multiple layers because I don't think you can get it, Kyle, but it's kind of, it grips your fabric. So it's a little rough on the back, so it grips your fabric so it's not moving when you're cutting it. But then I have my 2 8-inch pieces. And because the rice bag calls for 25 inches, I'll probably do something like this. Stitch it together, use this as the bottom, do some hand stitching on it, and then, but I've got, I've used it. The other thing that it's great for is if you're cutting 2.5-inch strips, say for your binding, there are like this has the square markers on it. So this is marked at 2.5-inch. So you're going to mark where you're 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10. So you don't need to do the math as you're going along. And this is the stars are 1.5. But you can also use, these are just peelable little arrows. If I was doing a 3-inch strip, I could just mark a 3, a 6, and 9. And it's just easier as you're going along. So if I was going to make 2.5-inch strips with this fabric, I know this is straight because I just finished cutting it. I'm matching the 0 and the 0. I'm making sure this black line is right along. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut. What did I say? 2.5? And for a change, I actually changed my blade yesterday. So I knew that I had a sharp blade. Somebody asked before if you knew that it wasn't going through, and you're not going to hear it today because I did change the blade last night. But the one thing is you can hear when you've cut through your fabric. If it's not cutting, it doesn't have the same sound. And you'll know that you need to go back. Sometimes when I'm getting towards the end of my blade and I'm too lazy to change it, I can tell the difference and I go back and do a second cut or maybe even a third cut, but you're in the same line. So you haven't moved your ruler like this because you've got your 24-inch ruler. It stays in place. So if you do go back, you're just cutting on the same cut line. The other thing that it can do, and this goes back to this other book that we have. So these will be in my library. This is in my library. But this is Mastering Your Stripology Ruler. And what that does, this is my copy of it. But if you're cutting in 2.25-inch increments, it tells you where to make your first cuts and then to move your fabric and where to make your next cuts. So here's the book. I've marked, I'm going to cut, this is the binding fabric for my holly quilt. And I'm going to cut, I need, and her pattern, she calls for 2.25-inch. So these are the cuts I need. I love a diagonal stripe for a binding. So the first cuts I'm making, actually you can use that and I'll use this, are at 0, 4.5, 9, 13.5. And I think that might be enough for what I need. And now what I do is I move the ruler to the left of the 0 to 1/4-inch. So there's a 1/4-inch marking on here. And I go to 2, 6.5, and 11. There's my strips. And so they are 2.25-inch. If I was doing on my 24-inch ruler or a different ruler, I would have to be moving it every time. And this, I've gotten all my strips cut. They're all the same width. So this book also has other projects. There's other tools. It's the difference. It'll show you the difference between the different rulers, but there's some fun projects. She's got a great group. It's called, I think it's called Gundrun's Quilt Crew, where people are using these patterns. I mean, it's just fascinating. Like almost every day, there's somebody with a new quilt out of the Quickies book and how they've used their fabric, what they're doing with it. So there's lots of resources. She's got YouTube. She's got Facebook Lives. It's an awesome. Just an awesome teacher. Very inspiring. So the fabric that I just cut the binding for is for the Holly quilt. And it uses some Deer Stella fabric. Some of the deer, it's 2 different lines of Deer Stella, a really pretty, it's a white on white snowflake pattern. And as often happens with me, anybody who follows me, is I don't always follow the directions. And what I really wanted you to know is it's okay that even though you're doing a pattern, you can make it your own. You don't have to follow all the rules. And I didn't.
Following rules is overrated.
Absolutely. And so what's different? Well, as Sharon said when she was posting on the for our newsletter, she says, Chris, I don't see those stars. And you don't, because I laid my fabric out differently. I wanted to actually have my fabrics kind of all together. And so I laid them out differently, a little bit because I didn't follow the directions as they were written. And when I went back and it was like, what did I do differently to get this? I like it. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I think it's lots of fun. There's lots of movement in it. But these, if you look and zero in on these, so this is the first block. That's this. I should have had this one turned where the white, the larger white strip was at the top rather than at the bottom. And that would have just been twisting the blocks. And I think my mind was elsewhere. So I just didn't lay it out the right way. But, serendipity happens, and I like how it turned out. And it's all ready to go on the long arm.
Apparently, Gundrun calls it being a rebel when you put a
Well,
spin on it.
I'm definitely a rebel. And then the stripes that I did, that's your binding fabric. So that's how it's going to be binding. And then I happened to pick, when I was in here yesterday setting the table up, I thought I needed to pick backing because I'm leaving this here today for when the machine, the long arm's ready. But I thought this backing, it's a wide back, it's on sale. But I thought that kind of picked up the pine cones. So it's a great option. It was, I think, 2 yards of wide back. So
Can we see it again?
Mm-hmm. I think it's grass, something grass. Sharon, do you know what the name of this one is? Okay, we'll put it in there. But it is on sale right now. So when we do our kits, we don't include the backing fabric, but it does grassroots. Okay. And I told you I'd have some more ideas for you. One of my favorite G design patterns is the Emma pattern, and we've had multiple versions of the Emma. We currently have a kit that has a combination of Seth Apter and Tim Holtz fabrics with a little bit of palette mixed in. but I think that would just make a really nice Emma quilt. And this is where you're cutting 8-inch squares. You lay 2 on top of each other, and the directions are very clear as to what you do with that. But that's the Emma Quilt Seth and Tim version. This one, when I was talking about the mini ruler, the little JoJo is a good example where the mini ruler comes in handy. The instructions will tell you, but it calls for 45-inch squares, and we've got the Australian fabrics in 5-inch squares in a bunch of different colorways, so that's also a good option. The quilt that's actually on our long arm right now is Andy made. He made one to test it, bless his heart, and then he made another one with Shell Rummel's brush strokes, which we expect to get into the shop any day. So he made this pattern with the new brush strokes, and it's just waiting to be quilted right now. We'll have kits for that one.
For little Emma, would you say that it's doable for a late beginner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But the thing is with her patterns are, if you read the pattern, and she's very clear, is you need to read the pattern all the way through, is she gives you very, in addition to the instructions, she gives you very visual where you put your markings, and that's where your stickers come in handy to make your slits, and you end up with 2, and then you do the same. Several of the patterns, the Holly quilt, the Emma quilt, you're working with an A and a B pile of fabric, so you separate your because the cuts are a little bit different so that you get these different angles. And why do I point that out? Because several of us have made the mistake that we get just over on a roll and we cut them all A. Again, it's a little creative design, and you have a fun quilt that's all in one direction. Yeah, we answered that one, Sharon. Yeah. Yeah, no problem. And we have other patterns that aren't GE design patterns, and these are kits, but this 14 on point, which we have in 2 different colorways, perfect for the rulers because what you're cutting fabrics.
Judy just called herself a late beginner.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Well, she's not a late beginner. She's a late pattern adopter because she is an improv quilter.
And then we've been asked to show the arrows one more time.
Oh, okay, sure. So this is what it comes looking like. But what they are you have different color stickers. You've got 3 different colors. So if you're doing markings, 2 different markings on the same kind of cutting, they just peel off. And so if I was cutting an 8-inch, like I was cutting 8-inch before, I wanted a line. This is just a good visual, is to remind you exactly where you're cutting. But you can take them off if you're then doing another cut. Like the Emma, she tells you to square it up at the 3 and the 7. So I would mark the 7 up here, and when I'm putting the block and turning it, I would make sure I'm zeroing it in on the 3s and the 7s. What else do I have here? Pretty much it. Oh, this is another one, the Vertex. This is another one that I used my Stripology ruler in. So the ruler is more than just the patterns that GE Designs has done, though we have lots of their patterns, lots of their books. This is one of my favorite books too. So it really is just playing with it. Easy to learn. All the newer books have the QR codes. So you just hold your phone up to the QR code, hit the yellow spot, and it takes you to her videos. I did that on the Holly quilt. It was just like, where am I supposed to cut it? How am I supposed to turn it to get the right cuts? And it was a quick visual on how to do it. Okay.
And then I've been asked to get a close-up.
Oh, okay, sure.
For this.
I love how he quilted it because it's like really so many lines in it, and with the wavy quilt.
Do we have any announcements?
I made them in the beginning.
You did. Do we have any more announcements? No.
No.
This is what happens when I don't have coffee.
And you were here early.
I know.
Judy, did you hear that? He was here early.
Oh my gosh.
He was here when I got here. Okay. So this one, actually, we'll show this one, the Holly, again, because I can't wait to see what they decide, what pattern they decide. I usually tell the quilters, your choice. There's lots of options there as what they do and what color thread they're going to use, but I think it'll be beautiful quilted up.
What's the background on the Winnie?
It's, the Winnie is actually a palette.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a palette, and the kits, the reason they're on pre-order is because we're waiting for an order of palette to come in. We just seem to go through palette pretty quickly. It's the Marcia Durst, reads like solids, great blender fabrics. Yeah. Any other questions?
No. That's it.
Okay. All right. Happy sewing. Order your kits and get sewing. You can make a Christmas present. All right. Goodbye.